Hi guys, today I'm going to be filming a video about the books I want to read before the end of 2020. Some of them I've already mentioned in my August TBR video. If you want to watch that, check that out. There are 13 books there, so this is just 8 that I want to read. There are a couple that overlap, but it's mostly different books that I want to read after August probably. The first book I want to read is The Black Kids by Christina Hammonds Ried, and this is a book that takes place in 1992 around the Rodney King riots, which I will be honest, I don't know much about, but I'm hoping that the book will give me a new perspective on it that isn't just something that I could Google. And basically this follows a girl called Ashley who is very affected and her life is changed by the riots. Obviously she's a black girl, and she kind of now sees the changes around her and now sees herself as, instead of just a girl, she is now seen by everybody as a black girl, or a black kid, is as the title insinuates. I think basically it's just about how she has to figure out who's with her and who's against her and how her life is changed now. The second book I want to read is actually the third book in a series that I started last year called Rotten Ruin, and I want to read the third book, which is called Flesh and Bone by Jonathan Maberry. And this series was recommended to me last year by an old friend of mine. We actually did kind of like a buddy read thing in September. So, and honestly, okay, so the first book I'll tell you about follows this character named Benny, and basically the world is zombie infested. So this is a zombie book. And I was skeptical about it at first because I've never read a zombie book, and I hadn't read a lot of sci-fi or even fantasy in a while, so I was very skeptical going in. I didn't think I was gonna like it, but when I read it, I loved it. It was it was thrilling, it was interesting. I mean, maybe it's just because it's the first zombie book I've read, but I expected it to be cliche, and it wasn't. But basically in the first book, Benny is a 15-year-old boy and he has to find a job before his rations are cut in half by the community that he lives in. So he ends up having to take a job with his older brother, who he doesn't like that much, and he expects a boring job of slaying zombies. He doesn't expect the lessons that he learns and the hardships that come with that job. I mean, if you like reading zombie books, stuff like that, or even just sci-fi in general, I would recommend it. It brings up topics of like philosophy and how like, I guess zombies aren't necessarily inherently evil because they can't really think. So that was a really interesting aspect of it for me. So if you enjoy that, you might enjoy that book. The third book I want to read before the end of the year is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, the 7th Harry Potter book, because I have never read this one and I don't know what happens. I mean, I generally know because, like, I mean, the chosen one trope throughout the whole, obviously, like, I know. I know, like I don't know. Obviously, we don't, like, who wrote this? Oh, it's not on the bottom, it's on the top. Who wrote this? I don't know who wrote this. I'm super excited to read this and finish the series because in 8th grade I started reading the books and I actually did not like them, and I stopped when I was a little bit into the 5th one, but recently I reread the first 4 books and I continued with the series, and I read the 6th one in May or June, sometime around there. but I'm super excited to finish the last one, and I haven't seen the movies either. The 6th book was my favorite so far. I don't know how this one's gonna be. I mean, there's not really a synopsis on the back, it's just it just says, "We now present the 7th and final installment in the epic tale of Harry Potter." So that's kind of mysterious, so that's pretty fun. These covers are freaking beautiful. I have the set where like the spine is built to look like Hogwarts, but I just think that's super cool. The 4th book I want to read before the end of the year is Eclipse by Stephenie Meyer, and I am going to be reading this in August. Hopefully I'll get to it, but I've been listening to the audiobooks in the Twilight series, and they are my guilty pleasure. I love them a lot. I mean, obviously they're controversial, and I know why. They've been like that for years. I read a lot of New Moon, like a few months ago, like as I would take walks or paint, because like as I was finishing up my art class in school. So I feel like that just it's just associated with good calming memories, I guess, even if the books aren't all that calm all the time. But I mean, I went into the first book expecting it to be super cheesy and stupid, and like it is, but like in the best way, and I love it. The 5th book I want to read is Hollow City it's the 2nd book in Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children series. I picked up this copy at the thrift store, and that was like such a steal. And it's paperback, so I'm very glad. And the 1st book basically follows, what is his name? I don't know what his name is. But the 1st book basically follows this boy whose grandfather dies and is killed by something that only our main character can kind of make sense of. And he goes to this island to make more sense of it. And he finds, this is definitely not a spoiler. He finds this group of children who are kind of existing in the past, and they all have these weird abilities, I guess. And this book follows them into London. I don't know much about it other than that, but yeah, I don't think I can even say it because it's kind of a spoiler for the 1st book, but they go to London in this book. And I've been meaning to read this. I kept picking it up throughout this year, meaning to read it, but I just haven't gotten to it yet, but I definitely want to get to it in like September or something. Oh wait, no, I'm reading this in the Newts in August, I think. So this will get done. Number 6 is Such a Fun Age by Kiley Ried, and this is a book that I'm going to be reading with the Black Hotties book club here on BookTube. I'll put a link to them below, but I recently found them, and basically their goal is to read books by Black authors, so I was like, I definitely could diversify my reading, so I was like, let me just follow along with them, and I wanted to read this book anyway. It seems super interesting. It's about a Black woman who is babysitting a white child one day, and I think they go out in public somewhere, and then the woman is accused of kidnapping. So I think it'll be a really interesting perspective to read about, and I definitely want to know how the kid's mom handles it. I think it'll be a super informative conversation about prejudice and racism. So yeah. The 7th book I'm excited to read, the 7th book I want to read is so exciting. Oh my god, I want to pick it up so bad. I just don't have time, but that is A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor by Hank Green. This is his 2nd novel, the sequel to An Absolutely Remarkable Thing, and I love that book a lot. It was like 4.5 stars, I think. I mean, I might be biased just because I love the man, but I really want to pick this up, and I was going to a couple days ago after the reading rush ended, but I told myself I would give myself a break So I'm hopefully going to bring this to college with me and read it in September, I think. This cover is beautiful. Let me see if there's something underneath. I think it's just orange, but like a beautiful orange. I don't know what it is with me and orange this year, but like I feel like orange is it's just the color of 2020 summer. Like I think this is, man, I didn't even explain what this is about. The first book in this series, I think it's called The Carls. The series is called The Carls. The first book is about this 20-something-year-old called April May, and she one day stumbles upon this huge sculpture, or at least she thinks it's a sculpture, and she makes a YouTube video about it like in the middle of the night, and she posts it to YouTube, and it goes viral because all around the world these things that she calls Carls have been popping up in notable cities. So she's kind of thrown into fame, and the book is kind of about how she handles the fame and how they follow the story of the Carls. And this book, you don't want to read the synopsis of this unless you've finished the first book, because it's a spoiler, I guess. But I'm just super excited to get to it. The last book that I want to read in 2020, last on this list at least, is A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess, one of those. And I really don't know much about this. I know it's a classic. On Goodreads, in the synopsis it says that like it's a sci-fi about how like criminals take over after dark, it said on Goodreads. So I'm not exactly sure what it means. I did try to read this last year, but I couldn't. I picked it up because it was short, and I guess in that amount of time I didn't have a lot of time to read. But I started reading, and I was very confused by all the slang in the language in the beginning. People say in reviews that it gets easier to read as you go on, but I just really want to give myself the time to go through this and understand it. Hopefully I can read it in the last couple months of the year. I already tabbed some parts, and it's honestly, I think they're all in the foreword. So yeah, these are all in the introduction, these tabbed parts. So I don't know, I really love this cover. I got it at BookCon 2019. I think that's where I got this, but yeah, I'm hoping to get to this as soon as possible. Whenever I have like, I'd like to read this in like 2 weeks. I could probably, because I want to take it slow so I can really soak in the language, I guess. Anyway, that was my list of books that I want to read before the end of 2020. I hope you enjoyed watching. Make sure to check for some links in the description below to Black Lives Matter, Trans Lives Matter, and other LGBTQ resources, as well as environmentally conscious resources. Those are very important to me. If you want to see more from me, you could subscribe. I have a couple vlogs coming out soon, and I'll be moving into my dorm soon, so I will be making a video about that. So if you want to see it, stay tuned. Thank you. Goodbye.